Nobody is talking about this silver shortage. And I want to be very careful with my words here, because the phrase you keep hearing on the financial channels is that a shortage is coming. Coming. Some future event out on the horizon that you have plenty of time to think about later. That framing is doing something to you, and it is doing it on purpose. It is putting you at ease. It is telling you there is no rush, no reason to look closely, nothing that touches your retirement today. And I am going to show you why that word is the most misleading word in this entire story. Because if you own silver right now, or you have been thinking about it, or you have savings sitting in a retirement account, and you have wondered whether the metal everyone treats as an afterthought actually matters, then this is exactly the conversation the people who move this market would rather you never sit through. By the time this is over, you will understand what a structural deficit really is, how it has quietly been draining the world's above-ground stockpile year after year, and why the shortage everyone keeps promising you is not a forecast at all. I am going to save the most important part, the part that reframes everything, for the last few minutes, because it is the piece almost nobody will show you. So let me give you the one fact that cracks this whole thing open, right at the start. The silver market has run a supply deficit for 6 straight years. 6. That is not a prediction. That is not a model of what might happen if some crisis hits. That is the accounting of what has already happened, confirmed in the industry's own annual survey, the World Silver Survey that the Silver Institute publishes every year. More silver has been consumed than mined and recycled, year after year after year, and the gap has been filled by pulling metal down off the shelf. The shortage is not coming. The shortage already began, and it began a long time ago. Now sit with what a deficit actually means, because the word gets thrown around until it goes numb. Every year, the world digs a certain amount of silver out of the ground and recovers a certain amount from scrap. And every year, industry and investors and jewelers and coin buyers consume more than that. When you take out more than comes in, the difference has to come from somewhere. It comes from the pile that already exists above ground, the vaults and the warehouses and the stockpiles built up over decades. A deficit is not a scary headline. A deficit is a withdrawal. And when you make a withdrawal every single year for years on end, the balance goes down. That is not opinion. That is subtraction. And subtraction repeated year after year does something that no single headline can capture. It hollows out the cushion quietly in the background, while everyone stares at the daily price and misses the slow, steady emptying of the shelf itself. And here is what makes silver different from gold, the thing that makes this drawdown permanent instead of temporary. Almost all the gold ever mined still exists. It sits in bars and coins and jewelry and central bank vaults, because gold is hoarded. Nobody burns it. But silver is not just money, it is a material. It goes into solar panels, into electronics, into the tiny contacts and connectors inside the devices running your entire life. And in most of those uses, the silver is spread so thin, a whisper of metal in each unit, that it is simply not worth the cost to recover it when the product is thrown away. So it is gone, used once and dispersed. Gold is hoarded, silver is burned. That single difference is why a multi-year deficit in silver is not a temporary imbalance that heals itself. It is a one-way drain. Now think about who does not want you to connect those two facts. The big banks and the trading desks make their money on the churn, on the paper, on the endless daily noise of a price that ticks up and ticks down while you stay nervous and stay trading. A retiree who quietly understands that the physical world has been running dry for 6 years and who acts on it calmly is not a good customer for that machine. The financial media serves the same masters. So the story you get is soft and distant. A shortage might come. Prices could rise someday. Everything vague, everything future tense, everything designed to keep you from noticing that the withdrawal slip has already been signed 6 times over. Let me make this concrete, because I want you to feel it, not just hear it. Picture a man who has spent 30 years running a small machine shop, careful with his money, never chased a hot tip in his life, kept a modest retirement account, and did everything the responsible way. A few years back he read that silver was in a deficit, and he thought, well, that is interesting, I will keep an eye on it. And every year since, that deficit has repeated. Every year the pile got smaller. He was not watching a warning of something ahead. He was watching a thing that was already happening, in real time, being described to him as if it were still in the future. That gap between what is actually happening and how it is being described to you is the whole story of this video. This is the moment I need to stop and speak to you directly, because we are at the exact point where understanding turns into action and where most people freeze. If you are someone with $100,000 or more in a 401k or an IRA, I want you to know something that the people running this market are very quiet about. The central banks of the world have been buying gold at a pace we have not seen in modern history, more than 1,000 tons a year, 3 years running. roughly double what they bought the decade before. They are the most informed buyers on the planet, and they are voting with their reserves. And there is a perfectly legal, perfectly ordinary way for you to do the very same thing inside the account you already have. You can move a portion of your retirement savings into physical gold and silver, real metal, held for your benefit, without triggering taxes and without triggering penalties, through what is called a self-directed precious metals IRA. This is not some exotic instrument reserved for insiders. If you have $100,000 or more in any retirement account, this is for you. My team put together a free guide that walks through exactly how it works. If you are watching this on your TV, just scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com, look it over, and then come right back, because the next part is where this gets serious. Now let me widen the lens, because a 6-year deficit does not exist in a vacuum. It shows up in the plumbing of the market, if you know where to look, and the plumbing has been groaning. Look at the exchange warehouses, the COMEX system where the paper contracts are supposed to be backed by real bars. There is a category called registered metal, the silver actually available to satisfy delivery, and through the heavy delivery cycles that category has been drawn down hard as buyers stood for their metal and pulled it out the door. The total stack in the warehouses is larger, yes, but the registered bucket, the part that is actually deliverable, is the tight one, and it has been shrinking under real demand. That is what a deficit looks like when it reaches the pipes. Think for a moment about how strange that is. The exchange does not create metal. It can raise the cost of holding a position. It can shuffle contracts. It can move the price around with the stroke of a rule change, but it cannot manufacture a single ounce of silver. And we have watched that truth before, in a different form. There was a stretch not long ago when the exchange lifted the cost of holding silver several times in a matter of days, and the price fell sharply, something like a third of its value gone almost overnight, while nothing whatsoever changed about the metal in the ground or the metal in the vault. The exchange moved the cost of holding, not the supply of the thing. Remember that distinction, because it is the key to keeping your nerve. When the paper price gets slammed, ask yourself the only question that matters. Did an ounce of silver disappear from the world, or did somebody just change the rules of the betting parlor? Almost always, it is the second one. And it is not just here. Look east. For a long time, the flow of silver ran one direction, and lately it has reversed. China, which used to send silver out into the world, has flipped into a serious importer, pulling metal in. And you can see the strain in the price gap because the Shanghai market has been trading silver at a steady premium over the Western price, a double-digit gap that has persisted, which is the market's way of shouting that metal is scarce in the place it is being pulled toward. Metal moves toward tightness the way water moves downhill. And in London, the great vaulting center of the West, silver stocks have been under drawdown pressure, with the tightness in the physical market showing up again and again. 3 different corners of the world, the same signal. The shelf is being emptied. But here's the part that actually changes how you should think about all of this, and almost nobody gets to it. You might be sitting there thinking, if there is a genuine 6-year shortage, why has the price not simply exploded? Why does silver still get knocked around, still sell off, still spend long stretches looking sleepy? And that question, that exact question, is the trap, because the answer reveals the single most important thing about this market. There are 2 silvers. There is the physical metal, the real bars and the real vaults that are genuinely running down, and there is the paper silver, the mountain of contracts and claims that trade every single day in volumes that dwarf anything that physically exists. The price you see quoted, the number on the screen, is set in that paper world. And in the paper world, you can create a new claim with a keystroke. You do not need an ounce of metal to sell a contract. So the price can be pushed around, can be capped, can be walked down, even while the physical shelf is emptying underneath it. This is the divergence at the heart of everything. A hawkish Fed, a headwind for the paper price, can knock the quote down and pull the metal off its highs, even as the real-world tightness never eased for a moment. Paper says one thing, physical says another, and they are drifting apart. You saw a version of this play out not long ago, when a crowd online decided they would force a silver squeeze by piling into the paper market, buying the claims, buying the contracts, certain they had found the pressure point. And it failed. It failed because buying paper claims just creates more paper claims. The very instrument they were using to squeeze the market was an instrument the market could manufacture out of thin air. The lesson was brutal and clean. You do not fix a physical shortage by trading paper. The only thing that actually tightens the real market is real metal leaving the system and going into hands that will not let it go, which, quietly, patiently, is exactly what has been happening for 6 straight years. Now, I want to be honest with you, the way I would want someone to be honest with me, because I am not here to sell you a fantasy. There are real reasons the industrial side of silver could soften. At high prices, the people who use silver in manufacturing get clever. In solar panels, engineers have been thrifting the metal, using less per panel, substituting where they can, and that has pulled some demand down. That is real, and I am not going to pretend it away. But watch where the displaced demand goes, because the same forces building out the data centers and the artificial intelligence infrastructure and the electrified vehicles are absorbing silver on the other side. The uses shift. The overall pull on the metal has stayed relentless enough to keep the deficit running year after year. And even a shrinking piece of demand still runs into a supply that simply has not kept up, because you cannot conjure a new silver mine out of a good intention. It takes many years and enormous capital to bring real supply online, and that lag is exactly why deficits like this do not resolve quickly. They compound. Let me connect this to something you already understand in your bones, because you have watched money get pushed around your whole adult life. Back in the spring of 2020, in the teeth of the panic, silver crashed toward $12, and the ratio between gold and silver blew out toward 125, one of the widest gaps ever seen. Silver was left for dead, and then, within months, it ran back toward 30 as the panic cleared and the ratio compressed hard. Nothing about the metal itself had changed in those few months. What changed was the paper storm around it. That is the volatility you have to be able to sit through. The metal did not fail those holders. The ones who got shaken out were the ones who were positioned so that a paper storm could force their hand. And that brings me to the honest caution, because I owe you this. I cannot tell you what silver will do next month or next year, and anyone who gives you a price and a date is not being straight with you. This metal is volatile. It can be knocked down hard by the paper market, even when every physical fact points the other way, and you have to be able to live through that without panicking. What I am laying out is a case, a strong one, built on the best sourced fact in this entire space, a 6-year documented deficit. But it is a case, not a guarantee, and none of this is personal financial advice. So here is how a careful person thinks about their own position. Own the real thing, the metal, not a paper promise that can be manufactured against you. Size it so that a sharp drop can never force you to sell, so that when the shakeout comes, and it will come, you are the one who gets to simply hold and wait, rather than the one who gets flushed out at the bottom. Never sell your metal into the shakeout. That is precisely when they want it, and precisely when you should not give it to them. And now here is the part one have been saving, the recognition moment, the thing that reframes everything you have heard tonight. The smart money already sees this. The central banks stacking gold at a record pace, the buyers standing for delivery and hauling real bars out of the warehouses, the importers pulling metal east and paying a premium to get it. They are not waiting for permission, and they are not waiting for a headline. They already understand that the withdrawal has been happening for years. But the mainstream, the pension committees, the financial press, the ordinary saver being told a shortage might come someday, they have not caught on yet. And that gap is your entire opportunity. Because by the time this is undeniable, by the time it leads every broadcast and every advisor in the country is finally recommending it, the easy part will already be behind us. The whole point is to understand it before the crowd arrives, and nobody is going to send you an invitation. Nobody is going to call your house and tell you the moment has come. The moment does not announce itself. It just quietly passes, and later you either were positioned or you were not. So let me answer the question in the title, plainly, the way I promised I would. Nobody is talking about this silver shortage because it does not fit the story that keeps you calm and keeps you trading paper. And the shortage is not coming. That is the lie inside the word. It is here. It has been here for 6 straight years, draining the shelf a little more each year, while the price on the screen was manipulated just enough to keep you from believing your own eyes. The shortage already began. The only question left is whether you understood that while there was still time to do something about it. Which is why, if you watch this all the way to the end, I want to offer you something real. For those of you with $100,000 or more in a retirement account, my team is opening a small number of free one-on-one educational web conferences. No cost, no obligation, no pressure. Just a straight conversation about your situation, how the precious metals IRA actually works, and whether it fits what you are trying to protect. And let me give you the honest reason to do it now rather than later. The right time to make a calm, deliberate decision like this is precisely when nothing feels urgent, when you are not being forced, when you can think clearly and reverse course if you change your mind. That window is open right now. It closes the moment this becomes a headline everyone is chasing. If you are watching on your TV, scan the QR code on your screen. If you are on your phone or your computer, go to jeffreedguide.com and mention that you watched this all the way through. Understand it before the crowd does, because the shortage did not wait for an invitation, and neither should you.